Hey, how's it going? This is Jeff with Final Boss Editing. So, tweaked the stream a little bit to make it a little bit more low bandwidth, permissible. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, don't drop too many frames. I know we've had some Twitch streaming drama in the past. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna turn off my phone's Wi-Fi, make sure that it it doesn't connect to the internet or anything like that, and go from there. So Wi-Fi's off, Bluetooth's off. We have some hope here of a good normal stream. Awesome. So yeah, what I wanted to do is today, one of our commenters last night was talking about, they were working on structure, and they said, hey, look. I'm kind of drawing a blank on this. I've been working on this same structure for a long time, or at least that's kind of what I understood, and wanted to see how to kind of plot this out into a full script or novel or video game story, whatever. So what I was going to kind of do was walk through some of the things that I've seen, help when I've been structuring, when I've done structure on screenplays before, and stuff like that. So if you have any questions, feel free to jump on in the comments. I will be keeping an eye out for those as best as I can. But then what I'm going to do is kind of go step by step here through what I think would help influence the structure for the positive in this specific instance. And then also just kind of go through a few general guidelines that I think will help a lot as far as story structure in general. So let's take a look at what we got here. Assassin's Path, characters. Toluis, Amaro, family of Amaro and Toluis. Citizens of Marceau, birds of protection and freedom. Robbers, king of France, France government workers, Sydney, citizens of Italy, Italy, other assassins group. Places, Italy, France, different churches, lakes, rivers, underground tunnels, caves. Storyline, Toulouse's brother dies and wants revenge. One day, Toulouse, I think that's how I say it, I'm not sure, but gotta give it my best pronunciation shot. Give the old college try. Sees a cloaked figure jumping up the rooks and decides to follow them. Ends up at the entrance of a cathedral. One of the figures appears and welcomes him into the cathedral. Toulouse then finds out that they are a group of assassins called the Birds of Protection and Freedom. The leader asks Toulouse if he would like to join, but he refuses. 1 week later, he decides to join because he got beaten up by some of his classmates. When he's 18 years old, he became a master of stealth. After completing training, Toulouse sets out to find the killer that murdered his brother. Then he finds out that his own leader is betraying his own group. He decides to examine his leader instead of the killer of his brother's death. Toulouse then kills the leader and finds out that he killed his brother. Find the killer that murdered his friends. Okay, 1 week later he decides to join because he was beaten up by some of his classmates. When he was 18 years old, he became the master of stealth. Set out to find the killer that murdered his brother. Then he finds the leader that his own leader is betraying his group. Instead of the killer of his brother's death, then kills his leader and finds out that he killed his brother. Oh, okay. Interesting. Hey, what up, Moocher? Hopefully this is a little bit earlier for you. So pretty much what we're doing, Moocher, is we're going to go through story structure here. This is a plot that one of the people that was watching last night actually sent over, said, hey, how would I take a look at this, polish this up, and make it really, really well structured? A hard question. There's a lot of stuff, so I mean, kind of just taking a look at this first, it's, I think what I can see is one of the goals is an expansive story, lots of places. I think it's this. Yeah, lots of places. Can we confined space is always better for stories. And I'm guilty of this myself because in some of the stories that I'm working on right now, I don't necessarily have the best confined spaces and stuff like that. So this is something that, is going to be a challenge. It's not insurmountable by any means, but it's definitely like, okay, you have a lot of things to handle. you want to make sure it stays focused on your characters. How do you do that? So the things that I would encourage, and I can kind of write them here in the doc. Um, Sounds like Assassin's Creed, which is an awesome game. It is. I think it may be it's have some Assassin's Creed roots, but I think the cool thing about it is, everybody kind of has their own take. I love the Assassin's Creed take on the story, great story of that game, but I'm kind of always curious to see, you know, what goes on from here. How everybody takes on that world. So I'm always a little bit excited about this stuff. So things I would think about are a single through line. It looks like it is the revenge for my brother. So that's what. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of categorize what you have here, your thoughts, and then hopefully, kind of at the end of the session or this, kind of have something a bit more actionable and to say, okay, these are kind of the things you should think about. This is what you should consider doing as far as implementing this. Because like the writer was like, hey, look, I'm kind of drawing a blank here. I've been working on this story for a really long time, and I feel like I've been kind of staring at the same page. So it's always worth it to dig deeper. So I'm just going to kind of write down a few of the things that we're seeing here. Revenge for my brother, and then the turn is I killed my brother. World. Assassins. Birds of protection. Betrayal. Revenge. And this is something very similar to, I'm actually listening to this book on tape right now, which is, Como Dice? Count of Monte Cristo. There we go. Though it wasn't in an assassin's world, obviously, but like that theme of revenge and betrayal and those types of things are interesting because you're kind of exploring two things. Like whenever you're going into a revenge story, these bring up your themes, which is like the human heart. Like what kind of lengths will people go to? And then it's like corruption, and that's usually like the theme, at least in some of these things. So what I find that helps me is if I'm going into a story and I'm saying, hey, look, I don't know how to resolve this. I kind of have these things I want to fix, and I'm not, hey, what up, Udovic or DVD? So what we're doing today, DVD, is one of the guys who was watching last night, or guys or gals, I think, who was watching last night, sent in a story that they're trying to outline, and it's actually it's pretty interesting to me because they were actually saying, "Hey, look, I'm not as it's going good." But their question is really around, hey, how do I take this story that's kind of my outline, this piece by piece thing, and make it into something that has a really strong structure, is like really popping, stuff like that. So what we're kind of doing is we're saying, okay, you kind of have this raw material here. How do we distill this into a few points of things that usually are kind of the things people look for in these genres, and obviously the writer may tweak them, but at least hopefully we'll have a structure for saying, okay, how do we distill this down, and then how do we take that and expand it out into something that's really a strong story structure. So we'll see if we can pull it off, or at least if we can give some good suggestions that maybe helps the writer. Revenge versus true justice was a big theme in Batman. Exactly. And that's like one of the things that I think that story is, right. It's like it's a revenge story. His parents were murdered, but then and the reason Batman's heroic is that he went about fulfilling that revenge by healing the city and doing actually the inverse of what a lot of the revenge stories show, which is like someone just goes on a rampage and ends up becoming the monster, as opposed to Batman, who pretends that he's a monster but is actually out redeeming the city. So then this is, it kind of goes back to those same themes where it's like, does the vengeful become what he hates? So these are interesting. So yeah, I think this is a cool world. Revenge is always a very charged topic, but then the writer is saying, okay, how do I tie this all together and make it really pop? So there's a few things that I'm seeing now that are interesting. So you set up that his brother dies and he wants revenge, and we don't see that again in this outline until the very very end. So one of the things that you will almost invariably hear from like the more writers you listen to, like if you listen to like lectures on YouTube, stuff like that, is turn your buts and ands into therefores and howevers, right? Where it's tying, it's not two random events happening. Like I want revenge, and I want my butt, and I join an assassin's club. It should be more I want revenge, so or therefore I join an assassin's club so I could get it. So that connection isn't super tightly drawn here, but that's kind of some of the things that we can start talking about as we go through this outline. Um, it's all good. Um, so the Foxy Lady is the person who was on the stream with me last night. The much prettier person, the more beautiful half of Final Boss editing. But she is also a really good editor, so I'm sure she can give some really insightful notes through the comments or whatever. So because she knows her stuff really well. So the things to think about here, okay, is bringing the story into one line, which I'm not becoming an assassin on the side just because it's fun. I'm becoming an assassin because I think it will drive my primary goal. Um, and then also kind of tightening up like just his theme, making sure these are all hitting on all cylinders. So or her, I think was the actual writer. So let's go ahead and dive in. So we kind of have the single through line, which is what we were talking about, revenge for my brother. So this, and then what we'll do is we'll say what is part of the single through line, what isn't. This is part of the through line, and I think that because this is the beginning and the end of the story, so I'm going to imagine that's the through line. So this is through line, and this is through line. And finds out he's the monster, and this is that whole becoming the monster theme you see in a lot of revenge stories, which is good. This means you're going to be playing with the universal. One day, Luis sees cloaked figures jumping on roofs and decides to follow them. I actually may make a copy just so I can actually edit it. I'll do Jeff edits. Cool. Yay! And hopefully it copies my notes. No, it doesn't. Sad. Okay. I'll bring these over. Sorry for the technicals. Eh. All right. I kind of want these in here. All right. Yeah, it just makes it a little bit cleaner, and this will be like notes. And so outline 3, the big 3. And then what we're going to do is there's, it's your through line, your world, and your themes. That's like the big 3. And then there's going to be another technique that's called the 4 pillars of your story. And I'm going to make these up because I don't know what they are or what the writer envisions these as being. But this will be kind of a fun place to kind of just take this idea and see how far we can go with it. Okay, so then what we'll do is we're going to start highlighting the areas where, it's talking about that through line. So yeah, this is a through line area. This is revenge. So the yellows are the revenge story. And that's kind of a weird yellow. Maybe I'll make it red. Because blood and revenge. And then red is our revenge story parts. Okay. Sees cloaked figure. That doesn't have anything to do with the revenge. Ends up at the entrance. Figure welcomes them into cathedral. Finds out he's a group of assassins. Has nothing to do with revenge. 1 week later, he decides to join up because he got beaten up by his classmates. It's a different storyline. This is, Assassin's World story. So I'm going to make this blue. And then when he was 18 years old, he became a master of stealth after completing training. He sets out. Now we're back to the revenge story. sets out to find the murderer. So you can see here, this is a very symptomatic problem that I see even in my writing and a lot of first drafts, is you're telling two separate stories, but they're not, they're ands, right? Like it's this and he's interested in this, but instead of like this, therefore, bond. So then we're going to say, okay, he wants to find the killer that murdered his brother, red. He finds out that his own leader is betraying his group, that has less to do, and he decides to kill his leader instead of the brother's death. So this is a different piece. So we can see that we have revenge storyline, assassin world storyline, revenge storyline, assassin world story, revenge storyline. Yeah. Are you going to the gym already? I'll meet you there. You took too long. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. But I'll, well, do you want to wait like an hour? Because I'll be done in like an hour. I was just going to help finish editing this thing. Well, have fun. Well, if you wait like an hour, I'll go with you. Have some mochi ice cream. You told me 9:30. Uh-oh, now I'm in trouble. I ditched out on my gym appointment. It's all right. It happens. But yeah, so what we're seeing is there's two separate storylines vying for attention here, which is why the writer probably feels that this is disconnected. So then let's go over the two storylines we have so far. One, we have revenge, brother. Two, we have becoming an assassin. That's how you spell it. Yes. So these things are two parallels, and they need to be part of one. So you would want to usually turn these in. So add these together. So it's I became to avenge my brother. The other question is, how does neither of them recognize each other? That's kind of one of the things that's already kind of like, how do they not recognize each other? Something worth answering. So we're going to go on the assumption that they're so vastly different that, there's just no way that, they think it's the same person or whatever. Because that means two people look absolutely different, like complete opposites. So, yeah, I that's a question for me at least. Oof. Let's see here. Okay. So those are kind of the big structure things we're seeing so far. So a few things. Two different storylines vying for attention, and then combining those. And then the next thing is outlining your antagonist-protagonist structure. And this is done in a number of different ways. We can kind of talk through those now. So there's usually something called the 4 pillars of the story, which are as follows. I'm going to go ahead and put this in bold, which is the goal, the hero's goal, hero's need, inciting incident. So people ask me, what does the inciting incident mean? That means one of the best descriptions I heard was it's right before the bass drops in a story. So it's right before stuff gets super crazy for the characters, or it's that event that kicks off, like my brother was murdered and I want revenge. The inciting incident. That's what's driving me forward. And then the antagonist. So these will really more look like a web. Like the hero's goal has to meet the hero's need. The inciting incident has to drive the hero's goal. And those things. So you would almost have like each of those 3 under each, explaining how they tie together. Revenge. So then we're just going to fill these in for what we have right now. And then we're going to go ahead and elaborate from there. So any questions from the commenters, any thoughts like, Jeff, this methodology is weird, this methodology makes sense, anything like that? Meow? Okay. No worries. Feel free to comment if you have questions. So the way you'll say the hero's goal right now is revenge in this story. And then what we'll do is we'll probably be taking a few liberties with the narrative as we go forward, just to say, one, we're already combining these, so I'm going to assume a combined narrative that I became an assassin to avenge my brother, not just because I got beat up at school. So these types of things have to be linked, or else it's a separate story in the same hero's life. So then hero's goal is become an assassin to get revenge. Hero's need. And this is usually where that theme comes in your big three. So, okay, the hero, what does he need? And this is usually a human yearning. And there's a really great article, and I'll type it in the comments just because, YOLO. From Where You Dream, Robert Lynn Butler. So in that book, he talks about this concept of yearning. So this saying, okay, every human being has yearning, for meaning, for belonging, for place. So there's that deep yearning, right? Like, everybody kind of has that want within them. So in this case, the need usually arrives from the yearning being misrepresented. Like, so I yearn for family, and I lost my family because my brother was murdered. So what I'm going to do as this character is I'm going to go and get back at them instead of rebuild and get a new family. Because the hero really wants to get his family back, right? He's like, I am alone. My brother just got killed. I yearn for that family that was lost. And he turns to revenge instead of going and building a family. So that's why the hero's need arises in the story, is to say, okay, he has a yearning for something, and he's going about meeting that yearning a certain way. And you'll almost never really mention the yearning, but it's behind the character's actions, and the reader will recognize it. So he's going about getting that yearning in an unhealthy way, and his need is to realize the errors of his ways and to find that, he needs to find that family is truly gained by self-sacrifice and love as opposed to revenge. Okay. So that's like a wordy one. You would obviously want to trim that down. But this gives us a good insight into the hero. He's looking to get his family back by revenge and by saying, you know what, this guy screwed me over. I'm going to get him back really, really hard. I'm going to see if this is not going to show up. Okay. Bink. So that's where you kind of have that interplay. Inciting incident, it will usually expose, it has to play into a lot of these things. So the inciting incident has to be, pushing him towards the antagonist. It has to be hitting on his need and his goal. So this would be his brother's murder. And I think it sounds like, until his brother dies and wants revenge. It's his brother's murder. And the antagonist is actually his brother. Because he's the one, because he faked his death. And now is off betraying people. At least as far as I can tell in this story. So that part's a bit more tenuous. That's something I would consider if I was the writer, to say, okay, how do I want to tweak this? I think that probably, I liked the twist ending that it was actually his brother, but that's something that's going to be hard for believability of the reader, is to say, okay, look, these guys are brothers. He's been searching for him his whole life. And then does he just go and meet this guy and he's like, nah, I should definitely murder him. He's definitely not my brother. Probably not. There's probably some sort of indication that he's like, oh, wait, this may be my brother. Those are kind of a bit more like, did he really miss that? Really, really? So something worth considering there. All right. So are you editing? So you do editing for what? Plays, games, and novels. Pretty much. I'm not so good at poetry. Hashtag no poems for this foo. And hello, by the way. Nice to see you, Daniel 20XX. Um, but yeah, so what we're seeing is in this structure we're missing a few parts. The inciting incident's there, the need's not really there, and the antagonist is not super clear. It's just kind of this vague thing until the very end. So one of the reasons the writer was probably like, "Hey, I feel like I'm hitting a wall here," is you're absolutely right. You're missing kind of two of the pillars of your story that will really, really help take it to the next level. Because if you know your antagonist, how he's going to be stopping your hero, it's good. So there's another way of phrasing it, and I'm going to kind of talk through a few different, because I do a ton of research on this because I love the art, like how storytelling works. I think it's absolutely fascinating. Because it works, like it works in everybody's head, and I'm also in marketing, so it's good for me to continue to study, even though I, used to work in editing a while back too. So the things that you see is like the hero. So we'll say Tullis. I actually had this in my notes. I actually just listened to a lecture about this. And I'll copy and paste it in, and then I can just talk through it. Shame on me. So then it's like, it's kind of your protagonist gets the world disrupted by X and instead has to fix it with Y, but will he succeed when so-and-so gets in his way? So it's like, I'm just going to short name him Toll. Toll gets his world disrupted by his brother's murder and sets out to fix it by getting revenge. But will he succeed when his brother, who faked his death, gets in his way? And that's kind of a tacky way of doing it, but you can see the way it's hitting on kind of these points. Yeah, if you guys, I'm not sure, place for aiding my comic, looking for other people, feel free. Send it over. Love reading comics. And it's usually story structure. So usually what I would say is, if it's a story, that's where most of my editing experience comes into play. So I did a lot of development editing, did a lot of work in that respect. So that's, probably where you'll see me have the most things to say. Poetry is much more image, which is why I was like, no poetry. But poetry is much more image oriented, and telling a story, it still tells a story, but it's telling a story through visuals and like taking the reader through a scene. And I think it's absolutely amazing when people do it well. Unfortunately, I just don't have the talent or the expertise to really speak too much into that. But fiction, storytelling, comics, video games, screenplays, or this is even like a novel outline. Very happy to help. I definitely, I feel much more comfortable. I'll take a swing in editing anything, but this is where I'm like, okay, I know what steps you need to take to usually fix it, or at least to have an idea of where you want to go. So this is kind of what I would say is you may want to consider to do something more as far as the actual like story structure. Bam. Hey, thanks for the follow, Caleb Pond. Much appreciated. And I hope you had fun hanging out. One thing, so yeah, feel free if you want, Daniel. Yeah, those little smiley faces are super creepy. I guess they have like a lot of these weird little faces, but they're definitely like a bit like intimidating. I'll do Super Meat Boy. All right, SMS Skull. Yeah. Sorry, and Super Meat Boy. Sorry, I love emojis. It's one of my curses, my emoji addiction. Okay, cool. So we're kind of distilling this down. So in the way you usually approach, even if this was a treatment, which is kind of a written out version, like if you're writing a screenplay, usually one of the steps in that process is going through a treatment. And I can even walk you guys through, if you care to know, put it in the comments. I can walk you guys through how I've gone through this process in my own writing, what that's looked like, and how you usually get from idea to bare bones outline, to scene outline, to treatment, to novel. So this is kind of the progression you're usually going to take as like a log line, one line summary, which is what we just made above for this story. Then you're going to do a basic outline. Then you're going to do a, and this is like, usually like 10 to 12. Like, so if it's a screenplay, I think it's like, you can do 13 to like, if it's a novel, like 20 story beats. And then you'll kind of do a scene by scene outline. And this is usually like every scene. So usually like a story beat will be composed of 2 or 3 scenes. So this is usually, for a novel, it'll be around 50 to 80 scenes. And then, novel. And then for a script, it'll be, anywhere from 30 to probably like 40 to 50 more likely. It depends on your script and how you write, because screenplays are a bit more tenuous. And then you'll do a treatment, which is... And if you guys are like, what the heck are you talking about? What does these words even mean? Feel free to punch it in the edits or in the comments, and I'll go into more depth about what I mean for each of these. So then you do a treatment, which is usually written out, in short form, and then you do a full draft. And then you'll usually try to do like 3 to 5 edits, to 5 edits, and 1 rewrite, and 1 to 2, which is you just like start from page 0, and instead of editing it line by line, you actually just write it over, as if one of the best pieces of writing advice I've ever received was, Jeff, if you're editing it, just pretend like it's a typewriter and you have to like have your papers and just like retype it, because you'll find yourself more open to making bigger edits and those changes that, kind of treasuring your basic process for idea to draft. And hopefully that helps. And I'll share this with our nice commenter. Cool. So any questions, guys? I know I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but it's kind of good to at least give a roadmap. I kind of realized I hadn't done that too well, so I wanted to kind of say, hey, this is where the whole story arc usually goes. But now we're here, so we're right here in this logline one-line summary. So this is where we're at, and that's this guy up here. And I don't know why it's in like freaking this weird normal text. Thank you. Yeah. I deleted all my... sad. I'll just do it from here down. Deleted all my pretty colors. Normal text. Okay, cool. So then, this is our log line. This is our log line. And then so the next thing you would do is those 4 pillars. I would want to go back and really make sure those were ingrained in the log line. So I have, he gets his world disrupted by his brother's murder, and this is kind of part of that next phase, which is, this is part of the lean scene outline, and that would be really where the 4 pillars come into place. And I can kind of scooch this stuff down. I think. The logline, I mean, you can do a lot of different ways. If you go to like scriptshadow.com, you'll see a lot of examples of loglines. They have like millions up there from all the amateur scripts, but it's scriptshadow.net. Has a lot of great advice on that. All right. Following you. Uh-oh, did I just go offline? That's not good. It looks like I'm still online. It says I'm streaming. Uh-oh. I just got a report that my stream died. But it looks like it's fine. Can you guys hear me okay? Is it still going? You may hear this feedback for a sec here. I'm just going to check my tech. Yeah, it looks good to me. So, yeah, whew, deep breath. Okay, I thought my my channel went down, which has been known to happen. Back now, it might be, yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, so we have a log line, we have, and then we're getting out to the lean, mean, scene by scene. So we have the 4 pillars of the story. So Toll gets his world disrupted by his brother's murder and sets out to fix it by getting revenge. But he will succeed when his brother who faked. But will he succeed when the brother who faked his death by getting his revenge and by becoming an assassin to get his revenge. So yeah, I would, I would still tighten it up because I think my gut is that you're trying to space this out over time, but I would avoid that. I would keep it pretty tight time frame, and maybe the brother is horribly scarred or burned or who knows what. But something that doesn't let them recognize each other, or maybe they're both horribly burned, because I guess the older brother wouldn't recognize his younger brother, which seems a bit off. That's probably my biggest question, and if you as a writer may want to really just be like, okay, how do I solve that? So let's just go, keep cruising forward. So then, the hero's goal, and we want to tie it into the other stuff, and we want to say ties to need, because he should not get revenge, but actually help the city avoid more murders. And then you'll have to show a choice of this, of revenge versus need. So pretty much this is a tragic story you're setting up that he actually is the one who killed his brother. He doesn't change. So you will want to be sure to highlight that fact and say, okay, this is a tragedy, but that hero needs to have that one choice that he makes where he could have gotten out and he could have been healed. So you have to have him almost get the need and be redeemed, but he chooses darkness. And that's in a tragedy. Tragedy? You ever have that when you say a word but it just sounds super weird? Almost fulfill the need. And this is kind of a recap, of some of the stuff you'll hear from really good writing approaches, like put a banner for Amalgamated Rogue, a nice passive income. Okay. I know a pyramid scheme when I see one. Anyways, are you sure you don't want me to refer my friend? So how it ties to need, and then how it ties to the inciting incident. So then this is, his brother is murdered, and he decides to get revenge. That one's an easy one. And that's kind of in the premise already. And the antagonist, how does his goal tie, or how will his antagonist stop him getting this goal? That's kind of a tenuous thing, because he's looking for revenge on someone that doesn't happen, but you also want the antagonist to test his need and to say, to have him try to give up on this quest. So how will his brother prevent him from getting his goal? So his brother doesn't even know that he wants to kill the guy who killed his brother. So it's going to be hard. Or he could, but he just may not realize that he's actually his brother. So that's something that you'll really want to figure out. Any other comments besides spammers? Feel free to just be like, hey, this is interesting, or, maybe ideas you guys have on your own as well. Always welcome. Needs that find a family. Okay, so then this ties in. We already know how it ties into the goal, but we want to know how it ties in the inciting incident. So his want for a family drives is, you know, exacerbated when he loses one of his only family members. And that's kind of a weak tie to the inciting incident, but, you know, that's a good, at least like what I would start with. It's kind of tough trying to like repurpose an existing story. But yeah, good to just at least, it's good exercise. It helps me a lot when I go in to edit my stuff. So, meow. Also, the antagonist. How will the antagonist hit the hero's need and make the hero more likely to do a sinful or wrong act to corrupt himself? How does the antagonist lead the hero to corruption? That's what you need to be answering here. Tough question. So I think in this case, he makes him an assassin that hurts people without him realizing it. But it doesn't really tie much into the goal, which is to find the revenge on his quest for revenge. So that's probably what you would do, is like he's becoming an assassin to get revenge. This guy is training him and making him better and a more deadly person, but he's in fact using that deadliness in a bad way. And then this is the inciting ignorant and the antagonist. How do these tie together? Well, this guy's death is why he set off on his journey. And you really want to bake out who the brother is. So like, you know, this guy's death is why he set off on his journey. He wanted power/greatness, faked his death to become a, you know, assassin and make money or whatever. So that's kind of where you want to go as far as the structure. And obviously you may, I doubt you as the writer will use this one. But, you know, this is kind of a good place to kind of give you some context into where to head. The next thing you'll want to do is to do a, beat outline. And I think there's a lot of examples of this. Let me just like, beat sheet. This is the famous Blake Snyder beat sheet. And this is a good way if you're saying, hey, I'm just, save the cat, beat sheet. Maybe this will work. We'll find out if it actually gives me a PDF. But this is kind of how you can, I'll do Back to the Future beat sheet. And this is probably an example. So you can see he has the opening image, the setup, the theme, so then you kind of have these beats that go through. And, this is a really valuable resource. So obviously you'd want to purpose this not for Back to the Future, but for your story. But I'm going to include this, and they have a lot of blank beat sheet templates as far as what you want to do next. So for the scene by scene, the basic outline, fill in this beat sheet, or your version of it. Fill in, and then for the scene by scene. And one thing you guys are probably saying is, holy crud, this takes a lot of work. Yes. I think the one thing I've learned time and time again is the more planning and thought you put into it. Hey, Foxy later. The more, thought, effort, work you put into it, the better quality and the more likely your work is to communicate the theme you want it to. So something to keep in mind, at least for me, because it's like, I'm always like, oh, this sucks. I'm still grinding it out and trying to do more edits, but it doesn't always happen. So scene by scene, you want to usually do a few things in a scene. And I can give you my little template here that I use. Note cards. And this is kind of the short. This is the short version. I have really long, intensive note cards. So for each scene, For each scene, write a note card that answers this. What is each character's goal? Goal, stakes, urgency. That's probably... So what is their goal? What is their stakes? What's at stake if they fail? What's the urgency? Why does it have to get answered now? Yeah, and then, you know, how is his theme addressed? What's his internal fear? Change of status and power. What's the core conflict in the scene? Setup and payoff. Who wins and loses? This is pretty intensive, but, you know, if I promise you, your script will be better if you answer this for every scene. It'll be very, very direction oriented. So I'm going to put your basic process up here. And then, you know, kind of like the world. And this is more like my notes on your particular piece. And then I'll do my kind of recommendations on good process. On next page, recommendations for process. Smiley face. Great. Well, I'm almost done. You know, those are kind of the scene-by-scene note cards piece. The last thing is a treatment. And let me see if I can find a good treatment example. If I can find a good treatment example. Sample movie treatment, yay. And it's pretty much just a story synopsis. This is a short treatment. You know, there are really long treatments. Like one of the treatments I wrote for my novel was like 40 pages, for better or for worse. And then, you know, that helped me a lot as far as once I got down to writing, because, you know, I just knew where I was going. I didn't have to worry about it. So then there you go. So this is kind of the basics of taking this idea. What I kind of did today was we said, okay, look, you have this idea. It seems a little bit kind of, you know, not 100% together. So we distilled it. We brought it down to kind of a few ideas, which is he wants revenge for his brother, which is the red. And then he wants to become an assassin, which is a blue. And then we said, okay, we need to first link those together because those are two different stories. We need to make one story. The second thing was we kind of outlined the big three of like the you know, the through line, the world, the themes. And then on the next page, we started walking through what that process is for building a story from the concept up. So you start with your log line here. You work into a scene-by-scene outline. You know, and you do, you know, you first do like your 4 pillars. Okay, you know, kind of like the story structure, the main arc. And then you fill out the outline, you know, the basic outline. And then you do your scene by scene. So this is your scene by scene outline phase. And then you do your treatment. And then you do your full draft. Well, you know, that's a very, very, you know, turbo mode version of how I think that story structure, so some of the process you can use to help fix a story or to help, you know, implement structure when there isn't very much. So yeah, I hope that helped. You know, feel free to, you know, shoot me back with any questions you have. And yeah, I'm trying to think if I have time. How long have I been streaming for? About 50 minutes. You know what? I'm going to. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop this stream so it creates its own thing, and I'm going to restart it in a few minutes, just to, you know, to kind of go through another friend of mine's story. I can do it tomorrow. What's this, Thursday? Let me think. Yeah, I'll stick with today being story structure. And then I'll stop this and start another one. All right. Well, thanks for watching the story structure version of Final Boss editing. You can see, you know, kind of some different techniques here that maybe you're used to. A lot of people fly by the seat of their pants. That can be effective. But I usually encourage a lot of people, get to the structure, it will really enable your draft to be a lot higher quality on the first draft. Doesn't mean you can't get to professional quality later, but instead of, shifting around one-line sentences or note cards, you're shifting around scenes, which just takes a lot more work, a lot more effort, and just makes the first and second, third, fourth drafts that much harder. So get into the notes. Try doing this process. There's more if you say, hey, Jeff, this is great, but what about some of the things that can add to this? Let me know. But I would really, really strongly encourage using this structure to kind of work out and help build this. So yeah, that's Final Boss editing for today. Take it easy, enjoy, and yeah, that's the show. Take it easy.